Evening, all praises to the Most High. I just woke up out my sleep. Some things are bothering me because right now, while we rest, these evil satanic forces, they don't stop. There are spirits, there are billions and billions of spirits and lost souls roaming around, entering in and out of our bodies and people's bodies. And if you don't become Satan resistant, you're going to always be prone to be consumed. So, with that being said, I feel compelled to share anytime to keep us alert, to keep us awake, to keep us understanding that 99.9% of the people on this planet are not in control of their minds. That there is a dark force controlling your subconscious. The way you think, you have been programmed. Most of us have been programmed to see and taste and smell something that is not real. Your reality and your perception of life has been given to you without you even moving a muscle. So, I've been reading this book right here. This book is called The Second Messiah. This book gives a full detail on the conspiracy that the Catholic Church did in the time of Yeshua, the Romans actually during the time of Yeshua, but it proves to us that the Greco-Roman system still exists today. That's why we are called African Americans, but because we are still owned by the Romans, Roman influence. But deeper than that, you know who started Christianity, who started this false worship? The remnant of the Jews who were there, the Israelite people who were there, because Greece was there 300 years before. And then after that, the Romans were there 168 years before. So we had about 500 years of not truly being in tune with Yah Yisrael. So during the time from the Babylonian captivity, then the Greeks overcame, and we continuously wanted to be like other nations, which means that a satanic system was being put in place by the Hellenistic Jew, Hebrew, to reform the power that we have with Yah, to make it a world religion, to put everybody on this planet asleep, including ourselves. Yah in his infinite wisdom promised that after we go through this process of bumping our head and trying to do it and figure it out and trying to get around Yah and do it ourselves, that he would wake a remnant up to be taken away from this miserable, evil, dark world. So, I was coming across page 17 in the book, and the name of this particular chapter is called The Death of a Nation. So I'm going to read something to you all. It says right here, and from Simon, son of Cleopas. Okay, it says, when the when the Romans, okay, this is how we'll do it. If he was certainly escaped, because it is recorded that he was crucified at a later date by the Romans. This is Josephus they're talking about. When the war finished, the nation of Jews had ceased to exist. This is talking about 70 AD now. It walked us through 68 AD. It told us, described us who Paul was as it related to his interest, they not being able to interpret, not understanding the message of the Mashiach. So they leaned on their own understanding, but yet they was given an agenda by the adversaries of Yah, by the adversaries of the Nazarene priest and this and that, to teach it in a way that will mislead the people, to have them having false hope in some dead man or some image of death, like the path that we were put on. But this is not the teachings of Yeshua. This is the teachings of their gods that they incorporated in Israelite society and came up with a perfect model to be the opium of the masses, as Karl Marx says, meaning that we would always be strung out on religion. He said, the Hebrews ceased to exist, only a religion remained. He said, after the Romans kicked us out in 70 AD, or scattered, the war was finished and we lost. The Jews had ceased to exist, only a religion remained, a faith that God had lost, God's house and its original and its origin. Judaism found a new bond of union in the study of the law and the worship of the synagogue. Now we identifying what happened here. Now you got to see why we so lost, and where did this synagogue come from, and where did this the synagogue, the Talmud, took the place of the temple, meaning that the Talmud took the place of the Torah, and in time became the shining symbol of the spirit of Israel's race. The surviving Jews, mostly the ones of the diaspora, many being Gentile converts, reinvented themselves with a highly diluted version of their faith because the radical Jews of Jerusalem were gone. What is this saying? It's identifying exactly what we see today. So when we talk about how the Ashkenazis picked up and taking the country, this is that convert. These converts what started way back in 70 AD, because we had been so lost in our faith that even the zealots and the Nazarenes that was there in the land didn't even understand that they were not worshiping right then. They were so caught up into the ritualistic religious aspect of it that they didn't even know that they were programs for the Roman Empire. I'm saying that to say that today in present leadership, they don't even know that they're working for Satan, because they're so caught up into themselves and into trying to interpret and be so scholarly of the laws and of the Bible that you don't even know that you are an advocate for the devil. Because you don't know how the spirit works. You're not in control of how the spirit works. Because you don't embrace, you don't surrender yourself to the universe to understand how man has misled us. I'm going to read this again. He said, the study of the law and the worship of the synagogue. He said, now, the newfound bond of the union in the study of the law and the worship of the synagogue. Now, so we went from being Israelites who was in tune with Yah, praying in the temple, Beit Mikdash. Beit Mikdash turned into a synagogue, just like a church. That means that these was just houses where people was bound now by religion, holding on to a blind faith, because people were teaching that you don't have to worry, God is going to destroy the Romans. We don't have to do nothing. All we got to do is keep following after. So the priests and the rabbis of that time had taken control of the people, using them, misleading them, and all the time they was in bed with the Roman, Greco-Roman system. Just like from where I'm from and from all of these other camps around, they are in bed with the Greco-Roman system. Not everybody, but you can look at yourself and you can look at the next man around you and you know exactly who I'm talking about. But outwardly, they're instituting laws and they're coming up with ideas and how to wear your fringes and this corset blue and this and how to these written laws, but not the laws that touch the heart, because the Torah and these things were supposed to be a blessing. They were supposed to be a oneg. They were supposed to be for your pleasure. It's supposed to feel good doing right. How did worship become a burden? How does a sister become stressed out for being married to a godly man? It doesn't make sense. How does a godly man be stressed out being married to a godly woman, except that there's something wrong with our communication? Yah is not the biological center of our relationships anymore. Righteous men don't get divorced. Righteous women does not get a divorce because there is no need to separate a union that was made by the Creator and as a witness. These are some things you got to start looking at now, because you wonder, how is the release rate in my kingdom 90 is higher than the marriage rate? When did divorce rate become in the Hebrews? I ain't talking about the Christians and the Muslims and whatever other religion. I'm talking about the house of Israel now. How did the divorce rate, how did the separation rate become greater than the marriage? Then there's a problem with love. Love needs to be redefined, because love is supposed to be a state of peace. We have made love become a commercial, emotional, external thing. Love is just like having a bank account now. It's not ahava. It has no meaning anymore. It's an abomination. It's a factor of lust. It's time to really start thinking now. But now we understanding that we keep trying to blame the Europeans. We did this. 70 AD, Israel was still black. The Romans were black at this time. There wasn't no Caucasian Romans. There wasn't no Caucasian Greece yet. These guys had not come down from the mountains yet. They were still being held in the northern part of Europe. The whole southern part from the Japhetic descendants was still looking like me and you. And definitely the Israelites wasn't white. So how did we get off track? So the Khazars played just as much of a role as King James did, retranslating the Holy Scriptures to fit for religion. Now, all of this was put in motion, and this was a subtle plan for today to distract you. I hear a lot of people talking about this ain't the Hebrew that was spoken in old time. But speak the Hebrew that's spoken right now in order to find out what the Hebrew in old time was. We're talking about a language that's maybe 800 years old versus a language that's 6,000 years old. The people who using this Hebrew today are the people that's in charge of the world. So obviously they done convinced us to go back and speak another dialect and all of this stuff that limits us in power, when they keep taking our birthright and making you chase some other dream. An Israelite that continue to talk about Christ and in the manner is no more different from these Christians. It's a setup. We supposed to study this. First of all, what gave King James Version this much authority, except that now it has to be revealed to you in the spirit? Because we can trace book after book after book, but if you haven't lived it, I lived the righteous life outside of this world, outside of this system. I was born outside of the matrix. I don't have the holes in my head. I can never be plugged up in it. That's why every time I was trying to force myself to fit in this world system, I was rejected. The poisons they make can't even kill me. It only confuse me. Tohu and vohu. And I'm trying to tell this to all of you young people who was born free, who was blessed. Do you know what kind of blessing it was to be taken outside of the land of captivity and to be born free? And what kind of curse it is to be sold back into slavery? Now you have to be delivered again. Part of the deception. We thought that because we had escaped the black racism the racism of America and white supremacy and the drugs and the folly and the murder and all the things that was going on over in America in the 70s, that it wouldn't follow us there. Not knowing that in the book of Job it describes that when the sons of God came to pray, Job's first chapter, it said Satan was inside of them. Now that's what the Hebrew Bible said. And that's what I'm trying to tell you about. You're trying to quote something from English. You wouldn't have known that Satan was inside of the sons of God. It said betocham, inside of them was Satan. But Hollywood and movies And before that, the church was drawing pictures of horns and tails to put something in your mind. So your projection of devil and demon is something with horns and this and that. And it's the guy at your job. It's your boss. It's your friend. It's your wife. Because it's a spirit. I've seen what it looks like. I've seen shapeshifters. And if you don't know how to activate the spirit world, you will never ever gain control of yourself again. The only way that you can free yourself is to free yourself from an external higher level of consciousness, from the vault of the heavens. You got to free yourself in spirit and then come back into your body, and they won't have any more power over you. So if the sons of God didn't know that Satan was in, and God had a conversation with the spirit of Satan inside of them while they was up and down, they were still praying. I'm trying to give you an example of a man that you consider, yes, he might be a righteous man, but Satan is inside of him too. Which means that it can be activated at any time. That's what happened. See, we were so busy, not me, but the elders, our parents. The only margin they had, their only idea or concept of Yah at that time had to be coming from the ideas that was painted in their blood cells, in their genes from slavery, from 400 years or 300 and something years of affliction. So the only way they knew how to identify with holiness and righteousness in God was from a deep, deep thought of Christianity. That's why he said that this generation will be stuck in the wilderness. One who wanders aimlessly. That means that their minds, because they had so much Egypt in their DNA, so much slave mentality in their DNA, that they would not be able to conquer the land. They wouldn't be able to go to that higher realm of consciousness. That doesn't mean they're not the foundation. They were used for an example and for signs and for seasons for us to be learned what not to do. Now, because they were the pioneers, they set a pace. It's a record of the errors, and it's a record of the power to stay connected with Yahweh to be successful. And each one of them great men and women who sacrificed themselves on this journey, who made the choice to make the first step. Yah sees that. And such a great step was made to build, to establish the kingdom. It came to me in a vision about the kingdom. I remember that a lot of people had made a statement that Rabbi had said that in 1977 we would have the kingdom. We would have the land. We would be in the Knesset. We would take over Israel. And I asked the Spirit to reveal to me, what did that mean? And he sent his Spirit to me, and he said, from 1969 going into 1970, December 1969 to 1977 made 7 years. 7 years completion. Every stage of the kingdom happened within that 7 years. The Aliyah that Prince Asiel made, bringing the people from Detroit, the establishment of the laws, the reconstruction of the Shabbat, the diet was implemented, the holy days were back kept, the culture was instituted. Y'all missing the point. In those 7 years, did the kingdom of God be established? It was already fixed. Everything that happened after that was up to us to be tried and proven. That was the part of the wilderness. But the miracles and the Exodus and all of the great things that manifest happened in that frame of time. The great Shabbat, sisters and saints was catching the Holy Ghost. They was talking tongues. I remember in Shabbat service in the Shikun in 1976, seeing angel spirits standing around the wall, surrounding us in the service. The power and the fire that was in the saints. The purpose of our coming was that in 82nd Psalm, the book said that they tried to wipe the name of Yisrael from remembrance. And God in his infinite wisdom made that move. So now the world know one thing for sure we got a record of. That Yisrael is our home. But we keep misinterpreting the thing. The Jews, when they went against the Romans in 68 AD for that last big battle, they were teaching the people that we don't have to do nothing because Yah is going to save us. But they were so far off track. They were so far caught up in the books. They were so stuck in what Moses said and what this said that they weren't even treating each other right. They had no connection with Yah anymore. And those who did not break the law, that good remnant, like the remnant that's in Dimona, the remnant that's in Israel, the remnant that's in all over the states and all over the world, who've been believing and you've been dogged by leadership or you've been mistreated by those who you trusted and believed in, whether they be priests, princes, sisters on the move, dogs, cats, you will be resurrected. You will be pulled out of that. This is part of what I'm talking about now. You're going to be enlightened. Yah has not forgot you. Don't give up. They said when the temple fell, the zealots and everybody, their whole morality fell. Then they stopped believing in God. So then a new religion came in and replaced it. The Talmud came in place of the Torah. The writings, we started believing and studying the writings of the messenger and not the message. It's a difference. We started following after people's books and not the Holy Spirit. He said that he would put the law in our inward part. So what do you think that it is? That means your gut feeling tell you when something's right and when it ain't wrong. When it ain't right. People wake up now. Okay, let me read this last little bit. He says, worship, it went from the temple, from a holy place, to worship in a man-made place, a synagogue, where it wasn't no power felt, it was ritualistic worship. These are all the things that the Romans and Greeks had already instituted, and they was trying to figure out how to get the people to shift into their matrix, to leave the whole, to leave this higher power, to disconnect themselves from the universe and now be stuck in a box. That's the boxes. Those are the prison houses. Those are them places where you saw in the Matrix where everybody was sitting up and their mind was plugged up. But because this is the way you've been taught to see, you can't see beyond this. I can see demons in children and my own. Because they was in me. So I can identify with it. But if you don't stop and turn around, Teshuvah. Teshuvah has all what to do with the Shabbat. That is that day when you reconstruct yourself and you bring everything back together and you shave. You become at peace. So he said that the Jews, mostly the ones from the diaspora, many being converts, Gentile converts. Many Gentiles converted to Judaism because it was reformed in a way that it didn't make you become accountable to Yahweh now. You only had to be accountable to your rabbi. So you could murder, you could kill, you could rape, you could do all of these things, ungodly things, and then you didn't have to be accountable to your rabbi, but only to your rabbi. You didn't have to believe that you answered to God. It's the same thing with the church. Oh no. It says right here, and in time, okay, the Talmud took place of the temple, and in time became the shining symbol of the spirit of Israel's race. The synagogue and the Talmud. And surviving Jews, mostly the ones of the diaspora, many being Gentile converts, reinvented themselves with a highly diluted version of their faith because the radical Jews of Jerusalem were gone. So now those who was responsible for keeping the law, they was gone. So the only thing was left was a highly diluted version of the laws of Yahweh. That means that man slipped in on a broken people, the remnant, and half of them wasn't even original, but they was Gentiles who wasn't even circumcised, and they began to pretend to be Jews, to fill in the spot. So by the time you get back, they got a whole script written to mislead us from where we supposed to be. That's why you can't just follow no man. You have to understand that Yah will use anybody to get, he leading us little by little by little. You can follow the words that come out of him if they be of Yah. But to believe and deify a person, you're going to get stuck there. Yes, you can call somebody, you can say, yeah, Yah is in him. You can say that. You can say he's a man of Yah. But when you know it ain't in there, you can't say that. Because Yah ain't sending nobody to mistreat you. He ain't sending nobody to break up your family. He ain't sending nobody to kick your children out of your house. We got to start measuring so we can identify Satan in and around us. Okay. Because the radical Jews were gone. Between AD 66 and AD 70, a huge portion of the population of Palestine had been put to the sword. According to the calculations made from the various reports of Josephus, over 1,350,000 men, women, and children had been slaughtered. The New Testament fails to give even a passing mention to the genocide inflicted upon the people that are at the heart of the Christian story, many of whom must have been eyewitnesses to the baptism and to the sermons and the crucifixion of Yeshua. Case over with. The New Testament that they done flipped and script don't even describe about this people, millions of women. Don't that sound like America? Don't that sound like slavery? We, African American, is a Roman slave. And I'm not talking about the physical. I'm talking about your soul still belongs to the Greco-Roman Empire. I'll be back. Let there be light.